Welcome back, everyone, to the INHABIT Podcast. This is episode 4. I am your host, Sean Pritchard, founder of INHABIT. Today, we have a very special guest, Dr. Jerry Yu. Dr. Jerry is the founder and CEO of Next Level Physio, which is a hybrid physiotherapy-fitness practice devoted to helping active women and men over 40 and their families stay active without medication or surgery. With over 20 years of expertise, Dr. Yu received his master's in physical therapy in 2001 from Columbia University and his doctorate in physical therapy from Rutgers University in 2004. He also holds additional certifications in Crossfit, dry needling, not sure what that is, but curious to find out.
Yeah.
The Mulligan Concept, SFMA-FMS, and pose running. As a multi-sport athlete and fitness enthusiast, Dr. Yu has competed in triathlons and Spartan races for many years and is passionate about living and preaching the fitness lifestyle. He's also incredibly jacked and forward. Jerry, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Sean. I'm really happy to be on the show and very excited to share any knowledge or experience I've had in the field and beyond with your listeners.
Amazing, man. Amazing. We're so thrilled to have you. And for those listening, I actually was on the Beyond Physio podcast a few weeks ago and got a chance to sit down with Dr. Yu and vibe out with him. He's become a brother and even a mentor of mine as well. I really look up to him for everything he's doing, creating his business and really helping people in a profound way. So what we're going to do, everyone, per usual, well, if this is your first time joining us, this may not be a normal thing, but I love to start out with doing some breath work to ground everyone. We're going to take a few minutes here. If you're driving, definitely don't close your eyes. If you are on the treadmill, also don't close your eyes. But if you're able to sit down, lie down, or even listen in, we're going to take a few minutes to do some slow nasal diaphragmatic breathing. The value of this, everyone, is when we breathe slowly through the nose, we are able to increase the amount of oxygen in our blood up to 20%. Down regulating our nervous system. And when we use that diaphragm, baby, that stomach, the belly opposed to the upper chest, we activate the parasympathetic nervous system. We're stimulating the vagus nerve, and that just helps us to reduce inflammation. This is a fundamental skill for all humans to have, and we prioritize that here at INHABIT, hoping that this enhances your listening experience. So we're going to transition now. If folks want to sit down or lie down, find a place where you can just tap in here and close the eyes, or feel free to have them open, placing the hands comfortably on your knees, taking a slow inhale in through the nose and letting it out through the nose, allowing the mind and body to settle in, letting go of everything that's come before this moment, allowing yourself to be fully present. And as you breathe slowly in and out through the nose, whether you're walking, whether you're driving or working out, just drawing your attention now to the bottoms of your feet, scanning up slowly from the heels to the ankles, calves, backs of the legs, hamstrings, glutes, low back, mid back, upper back, eventually arriving at the top of the head. Placing your left hand on your chest and your right hand on your belly, or whatever hand you feel comfortable with. And the goal of this practice is to breathe slowly in and out through the nose while keeping the hand on your chest as still as possible, while the right hand rises and falls with each breath as you draw air into the belly. A helpful tip is on the inhale. Imagine pushing your belly outward on the inhalation, which will allow us to draw more air into the diaphragm and into the lungs. Most adults only have a 30 to 40% lung capacity, so doing this slow diaphragmatic breathing helps to increase this critical function in the body. We're going to begin by taking 4 seconds on the inhale and exhale, and then moving up to 5. Exhaling this next breath here, everyone. And inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. And inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. Now we're going up to 5 and breathe in, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. And breathe in, keeping the inhale nice and light. Exhale, keeping the exhale light, making sure the breaths are even. And inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. Last one, everyone, and deeply in. And exhale. Continue breathing out as far as you mindfully can, placing the hands comfortably on your knees, taking a moment to go inward and see how you feel. What is the quality of your mind? How does the body feel? We take 22,000 breaths every day, but not all breaths are created equal. By breathing slowly for 5 seconds in and out through the nose using the diaphragm, we optimize our breathing, reducing our stress and anxiety, improving our sleep, and empowering over 30 trillion cells in the body with exactly what they need. I invite you at this time to draw your awareness now back to the room where you currently reside or area, feeling the contact of your body on the surface where you stand, lie, or sit, hearing the sound of my voice, my presence, your presence. And in your own time, I invite you to open your eyes if they were closed, bring a smile to your face, and yeah. All right, everyone. I hope you're feeling relaxed and focused in a good head and heart space after some slow nasal diaphragmatic breathing. Jerry, welcome to the show, my brother.
Thanks very much, Sean, for having me on.
100%, man. 100%. We're stoked to have you here. Brother, I want to go back. I want to go in the time machine, the DeLorean, go back to the beginning, man. So tell me about what you were like when you were a kid. Like, what was something that you loved to do as a child?
You know, as a kid back in the day, I was always very, very curious. And I don't think that curiosity actually ever left. And I think that's part of what helps me as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, and just as a human being to always want to get to a new next level, if you will. And as a kid, I remember so many times just experimenting with things, tinkering with things, and that sort of thing. And obviously getting scolded by my parents saying, "Why are you burning my scarf?" "Because it's cool." You know, this kind of thing. So I think curiosity was a big part of who I was and who I still am. Along the lines of that, I really got into animals, and which is very interesting because I'm not I do like animals, but from afar. So, they're kind of cool when they're not my pet. But as a kid, I was fascinated by animals, and I always wanted to be one, if you will. So it was very odd.
Same.
Yeah. So I think that kind of defines a lot of where my foundations were as a child, just growing up in this sort of realm of curiosity, always wanted to explore, always wanted to discover.
Mm. And then you thought about potentially doing a pivot with some pyrotechnics with burning scarves.
Oh my God.
What's up with that? Were you in some science there?
I was obsessed with fire as a kid. I can't even... The number of times, and my parents know this, the number of times I almost burnt our house down was just out of control. There's something about it that was so like, I guess, curious in a way. Obviously, burning ants too was a big pastime of mine at the time.
So in terms of that curiosity, I think as an entrepreneur and then coming into getting into the wellness world, what was something that was deeply interesting to you as a kid as it related to, and even coming into high school and then into college, like why wellness, why that specific area?
It's funny because I was always attracted to movement as a child, and I was always playing sports. My parents would drive me to always, to different soccer leagues and that sort of thing growing up. And from there, it always fascinated me how the human machine works. And that curiosity still stays with me even today. There's always a better way to move. There's always a new way to do something. And everyone varies in how they move for any given type of movement, whether it's running, whether it's lifting, whether it's playing sports. Everyone's got their own little spin, their own individuality with the movement they actually access and deliver at will.
So interesting, man. Yeah, I think a lot about this, just in terms of some of the more animalistic movements. If you go back, you think about, squatting, hanging, crawling, and even lunging, like those 4 key movements, and how those show up in our day to day or lack thereof. And maybe we can jam on this for a bit. Let's have some fun. Like, where do you see you think about the world we live in with our computers and screens and living in chairs versus, thousands of years ago, us ripping out on the open plains. Like, how does that impact the body today?
Well, it's funny because even culturally speaking, Sean, it's interesting that my parents, who had grown up in a generation in Korea where there were no chairs really. So they were used to deep squatting for number 2, for just everyday life. And moving to this country and having now been here for over 40 years, I see them lack the mobility to do these things now that they've been in the chairs and whatnot. And I see that in a lot of our clients that we have come in for physical therapy, where because they've been bound to the chair for many hours of the day, especially the guys in tech, people who work in front of a desk all day, it has a lot of profound effects on the skeleton, on just the whole system in general, the movement system in general as well. And for these things, I think that it actually takes away from our ability to access certain movements like we used to back in the day.
I totally agree. And I would love to call out some specific areas. So let's go through a little bit. Let's talk about the impact maybe to the spine and then work down to the hips and knees. Like, you sit in a chair all day. It was something like wild. Like, we spend something like 11 hours to 12 hours a day on screens. I said this on your podcast. We check our phones over 300 times.
Absolutely.
This can't be good. So tell us a little bit about some of the physiology, like with the spine. Like, what happens if you're sitting all day? What happens to the spine, and then what's moved down as you see fit?
Sure. Well, the first thing is the lumbar spine, your lower back, it was made to bear weight. So sitting down is actually something that it can handle. But the spine was also made to move. And if you look at it from the side profile, it looks like an S. There's a reason for that. That actually helps to absorb shock, helps to get you propelled forward and do the other amazing things you can do with your body. When you are bound to a chair for many hours a day, you start to lose some of that curvature, and you lose that access to that springiness of your spine, especially as we get older. And now you compound age with sitting down all day, and now you have a less resilient spine. You have a more compressed spine. And these are things that can set us up for issues later on, like herniated discs that can become a problem, like other kinds of back issues, even neck issues, because now that we've all succumbed to this forward text neck, if you will.
Yes.
I actually did an episode on that before, but that all comes from being in one static posture. Now, the interesting thing is, Sean, People ask me all the time, well, what is good posture? And yes, I could tell you biomechanically, if you sit up right, you're sitting at 90 degrees, your feet are flat on the floor, that's great. But the truth is that any posture that you sustain for any long duration is not going to be good for your spine, your hips, your knees, whatever it is. So the key really to maintaining a good, healthy spine and just good mechanics is to move out of positions. So like I talked about before, we were made to move. And if we're not moving, if we're always sitting down, being in a static position for most of the day, we're not going to be able to get or maintain the kind of mobility that we need in all those joints all throughout our body to be the best human that we can at movement.
So powerful, man. So powerful. I think a lot about this concept of micro movements like throughout the day. Do you have anything to share on that about like how we as people integrated with tech and that are on our computers all day and have these things to do? Emails are apparently important to send.
Yes.
So what could we do?
I actually tell a lot of our clients who are desk jockeys, for lack of a better word, to just set an alarm on your phone for every 30 minutes, just to be aware of where you are at that position. And sometimes it's just you taking a shift in how you're sitting if you have to do some long duration intense work, or if you're in a deep work state, or it's just getting up for a minute, literally stretching out, letting the fluids move all throughout your body. Our joints rely a lot on movement to be able to get nourishment. So just getting up for a minute or two, doing a quick stretch, sitting back down can be very therapeutic for your body.
Absolutely. I love that call out. So everybody, every 30 minutes, a little alarm action, not just to get up and potentially do some movement, but even from an awareness standpoint, where are you currently at? Are you hunched? Are you leaning over? Like, I mean, if I'm working for a longer period of time, it feels like my body is just deteriorating into one position. It's like, yeah, because your awareness goes out the window. So I love that, Dr. Jerry, just a little alarm clock, everybody, to keep us on our toes. Okay, so lumbar, and then moving down a bit, let's go to the hips.
Yeah. Before we get to the hips real quick, just talk about neck pain, because we do have a lot of clients who have neck pain and even some cervical disc issues.
Yeah, please.
With numbness down the arm and stuff like that. The one thing I've noticed, the first thing I'll ask a lot of clients with neck pain is like, tell me how you sit and tell me about your stress level. Because that and stress, 8 out of 10 times, everyone's got their shoulders up to their ears. And that's a lot of tension across that entire space.
Totally.
So I don't know, my neck hurts, but well, look at where you're positioned and see how much you can relax and get those shoulders to sit down. Do the contrary, the opposite movement of, instead of shrugging up, try to shrug down, if you will.
The depression.
Exactly.
Yes.
And that'll actually help to mitigate some of those symptoms in your neck as well.
Yeah, this is really interesting because when I run sessions with people, one of the things that I'll do, I'm doing like a yoga nidra style body scan. And as people are going through the shoulders, I have them exhale and dropping the shoulders away from the ears and depressing them. And what's so interesting is they're like, I didn't even realize that I was holding this up in this position for literally my entire life.
Absolutely, man. I hear that all the time. For sure.
Yeah. And so imagine yourself holding that, even for people listening. Just take a breath and drop those shoulders. Everything's going to be just fine.
Right. That's awesome.
Cool, man. Good call out on the neck. Let's slide down the body here. Let's talk about the hips.
Yeah.
Because I feel like especially men struggle with hip issues.
Yes.
And whether that's everything from really tight piriformis, I see that a lot. Hip flexors, like just from sitting too, I feel like that's a challenge. Anything to call out for both men and women?
Absolutely. So everyone talks about having tight hip flexors, but before we can go to the hip, we have to look at the way the pelvis is oriented. So if your pelvis is sort of tilted back, as a lot of people are when they're reclined, that's going to cause a lot of stiffness to happen in the front of that hip. So you've also, by sitting down for extended periods of time, day in, day out, you're also going to decrease the range of motion that your hip has access to. So you kind of wonder, well, I'm always sitting out with my knees sort of in this bent position. Of course, your muscles are going to get tight in that position. But let's look at how we can orient the pelvis in a different way, accessing things like breath control, like you've talked about, Sean. Very, very important for helping to reset the position of the pelvis, and also to help everything below that area to be able to get its optimal length tension relationship.
And what are some movements in relation to the hips that you think everybody should be doing on a daily, if not, few times a week or whatever?
Sure. I think just for general mobility kinds of things, and this is like easy stuff that you can do at home, even at your chair, standing up and going into, say, a lunge position so that you can get some access to your glutes in the back. Because the glutes are going to be your biggest opposite motion, I could say, from the hip flexors. And because they are the biggest muscles in the body, and a lot of us don't use them, I hate to throw the term out, glute amnesia, because it's been overused. But what I would say is that if we aren't using the muscles that extend our hip, we're going to be stuck more in a flexed position for sure. And our body will then orient towards that position, and you will get tighter and tighter over time if you don't access the muscles behind you and get the pelvis to be in a better position.
I feel like everyone just really take a listen to that again if you need to rewind it back, because the glute activation piece, I've never heard the glute amnesia thing, but it's something that I think is really slept on. And it's interesting because if you think about how much you're sitting, and if you have really weak glutes, that's going to impact your posture too, correct?
Absolutely, yeah.
And what about with glute bridges? Because I wonder, because I remember going through my mobility certification, and like glute bridges were something just for everybody. It could be
everyone.
Yeah, just they could get benefit out of. Anything to call out there?
Yeah, I think the glute bridging is a great activity to get awareness to the glutes, first of all.
Yes.
Because yes, I mean, obviously if you're walking, you are using your glutes. You know, that's hands down. But can we optimize how the glutes are being used? Absolutely. And things like the glute bridge will help you bring the awareness there and to be able to use them in a way that they're made to do, which is to extend the hip, which again will counteract the movements of the hip flexors themselves. But again, I think that looking at the pelvis and the alignment with the rib cage, that all plays an important part in making sure that you are in the right stacked position. As Zach Couples would say, he's an expert in our field, or Sean Astorga. These guys would say the same thing, where you have to make sure those areas are in an optimized position so that you can let the extremities move the way they should be as well.
Fascinating. Jerry, drop of knowledge for us. We appreciate you coming on, man. This is awesome.
I've had a lot of good mentors out there, so I want to give some props to them too.
Yeah, totally, man. We're here for a reason, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So let's shift gears a little bit, because I could just geek out with you on human physiology all day. Let's shift gears. I'm curious to hear, what are lessons from not only your life but also business that you've learned that you would want to pass on to people that are looking to level up their entrepreneurship game?
That's a great question, Sean. And I would say that I think two things define me as a person and have led to my success in the multiple businesses that I'm in. Number one being I'm having this attitude of giving to give. So giving for the sake of giving, not for the sake of getting. And over my 22-year career, I can't tell you how many times that has come to return its favor to me tenfold, hundredfold even, in different instances of my life. And what that looks like, it's like when I meet someone like you, Sean, or I meet people that I really jive with, I really kind of feel like this person could benefit from what I know and my skills and my expertise. I will like basically love on that person and say like, listen, whatever you need that I can help you get to your level of success that you want to achieve, whatever my power, whatever connections I have, I will make sure that I can like share that with you. And whether or not you reciprocate is irrelevant. Now, most people, because of the law of reciprocity, will reciprocate at some point in time, but I'm not looking forward to that at that moment. I'm thinking someone like Sean needs to succeed, for example, and I'm going to do what I can to provide the opportunities for him to be able to do that and then pass that forward or pass it on, pay it forward so that other people can also benefit from that. So it becomes this sort of like ripple effect of how I operate. And that's just how I've been as a person. That's rippled into my business, obviously, and beyond. So all the communities that I try to impact through that, I think have benefited from me being involved in them just as much as I benefited from that community as well. The second part of what I would say has led to some success in business has been this term called grit, which a lot of people know. But in my interpretation of it, it's hard running businesses. It's hard managing people. It's hard making operations work. It's hard making cash flow work, especially when things are tight. But just by taking that one step forward, maybe it's once a week, maybe it's twice a week, maybe it's every day, taking that inch forward will continue to help you stay on that path. And it is so important for anyone out there who's struggling right now. I feel you. I have been in very dark places, dark nights of the soul, we'll call it. And despite that, having the right people around me, being able to take that step forward despite the adversity has really led me to be where I am today.
Let's talk about the dark night of the soul.
Ooh.
And let's go there for a second. What was an example from your life? A dark time, maybe some tears before bed, maybe chilling in the car, not wanting to come in to face it. I've been there. Like, I want it. Let's go there. Let's do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So without going to too much detail, basically I was in a business partnership for a good 9 or 10 years. And I'll just say that I was not aligned with my partner. And as a result, that was a very long 9 or 10 years. And because of that misalignment, there's a lot of stress, I think, for both of us, a lot of anxiety, a lot of different fears, insecurities that arose from that. And for me, it felt like I'm not sure if I can get out of this. But finally, I made a decision with some help to make that decision to go off on my own and break free from this partnership. And despite all that period of time, which is a very low value for me, I was able to come out of it and really come out stronger than I ever have. Mm-hmm. And I refound my identity and who I am. And I think that's led me to the opportunities that I was able to pursue afterwards.
That's epic, man.
Yeah.
Way to go.
Yeah, thank you.
And what did you learn? You said strength, identity, refining that. What was one thing that you learned that came from that time that you feel like you are where you are right now because of that?
I'm more resilient than I thought I was. I didn't think I could recover from that. And thankfully, because of that that experience, and I'll say it was an opportunity because definitely it was an opportunity to learn about myself and about other people. And through that experience, I was able to endure even other instances where it was tough as well, because I was able to recover from that and move forward and be a little bit stronger in my heart, soul, and spirit.
I love that, man. I love that. And for folks out there, something that is coming to mind right now. Have you ever read the book, The Obstacle is the Way, Ryan Holiday?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I just read this last year.
Oh, that's
fantastic.
Really
funny you mentioned that.
Yes. So this reminds me, when something happens in our lives, we're given this obstacle. We're given this moment of whether it's darkness, of where we go, we have to go inward in order to grow and get past it. Now, the key thing is that when obstacles are in our way, we try to sometimes avoid them. Mm-hmm. We try to retreat. But the best thing that I figured out, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts about this, is to go directly towards them and to look for that opportunity for growth, because there's treasure for those who seek.
100%. And I would say that has defined a lot of where I am today as well, Sean, just because when there was something that was stuck in the road that was sort of my way, that became my way of like, okay, well, what is it about this that this obstacle has become in my way? Or is it really an obstacle, or am I perceiving it as an obstacle? And oftentimes it was just myself was the obstacle, my fear, my insecurity, my uncertainty. And a lot of times I would embrace that little by little and address those things and then get past it. And that became the way, as you said. So it's powerful.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool, man. Yeah. My brother's also an entrepreneur. My dad's an entrepreneur, and we jam a lot about this path. And it's like one of the biggest things that I've realized, and I was just talking with a friend this morning about this concept. So you have like a goal, right? You set a goal. I want to be whatever, a 6-figure monthly earner by X date, or I want to build this business, or in my case, I want to teach 1 million people how to breathe, whatever it is. But it's not about the achievement of that goal. Yes, of course, you have the North Star, and you will get there with consistent effort, hard work, whatever. But the key thing is who you become in order to achieve that goal, because there is an identity shift. Who you are currently today, you are going to have to evolve to become that person that hits that goal. So in entrepreneurship, a lot of times you have a team, but it's like you're by yourself. You're making the decisions, like you're having to balance the checkbooks of whether you win or lose that month. And it is like the ultimate process of self-discovery, self-inquisition, and ultimately persistence, because you have to run through a series of brick walls, not like on a weekly basis, but sometimes on a moment by moment.
100%. You articulated that so well, Sean. I love how you said that. I also want to echo in that I think entrepreneurship is one of the best ways for personal development. I am a different person 22 years later after my career than I was when I first started. And even more than 1 week ago, I'm a different person just because of who's in my network right now. But by far, it's one thing that I would love to just encourage anyone out there who's interested in owning a business or running a business. You will develop as a person like no other, in my opinion. And I can tell you, after having done this for 22 years, the amount of growth you will need to acquire to become the person for your business that your business needs, to become the person that your team will need to lead them, to become the person who will be able to have the vision and to cast that vision, execute on the vision. You will grow leaps and bounds as a person through that process. It is all about the process. I agree with you. It's not the end product. The end product is the byproduct of you becoming that person, like you said. 100%.
Facts.
Yeah.
Jerry.
Love it.
Powerful, man. I love it. I love it. All right. We're going to shift gears again. I'm just dying to know about how you actually treat people that walk in the door and learn about your frameworks, learn about how you have developed what makes you guys click. And just because I've seen just from the work that you've done with NJ Crush, and I mean, you're amazing at what you do, man. So
thank you.
Yeah, let's dive in, brother. Let's do it.
Yeah, it's definitely an evolution still, right? I'd say even as a clinician after 22 years, what I love about the field is that there's so much room to grow, even after 22 years. There's new stuff coming out. I'm learning from my team members who have just graduated or a year or two out. I'm still learning from my own self-study. And that's what's so exciting about the field. It's not what people might think it is. Unfortunately, a lot of people's experience out there is that, oh yeah, hot pack, cold pack, ultrasound, some cookie cutter basic exercise, some sheet that some, high school kid is walking around with and, checking off boxes for you. But really what it comes down to is if you're going to get physical therapy done right, you do want to make sure that the person does take a whole person approach. And so when people walk in through our doors, we really want to find out what it is that they need to get back to. For some people, it might be, listen, I just had surgery on my ACL. I just had shoulder surgery on my rotator cuff, and I just want to get back to basic living. Okay, that's one level or one tier of clientele that we'll see. The other clientele that we see, which is where we specialize in, is people who are active or athletic. So these might be your 40-year-olds who are in fitness, who are still running, doing triathlon, doing CrossFit. And because of one thing or another, they have gotten injured and now they can't do what they love to do. And that kind of sucks. It might be the kid who is a star player on a soccer team and has now injured their knee or ACL, for example, or something or other. And now they're sidelined right before the showcase. And that really stings too. What we really want to get back is kids and adults back to what they love to do. And so it becomes more about a stepwise process. So for us, it's move, excel, inspire. In our move phase, we're really focused on getting people out of pain and using all the latest and greatest to achieve that, whether it's manual techniques, whether it's using dry needling, whether it's using BFR, whatever's out there. We try to do whatever we can to accelerate the recovery so that we can get to the excel phase, which is where the bread and butter is for us. And that's where we look to strengthen specifically for that individual. We look to secure joints. We look to stabilize what needs to be stabilized so that the person develops the right foundation and basis to be able to get to their inspire phase. And that's where they love to do. So that's if it's running, if it's CrossFit, if it's golf, playing tennis, whatever it is, soccer. These are all things that we try to get that person to. But I am never happy if a person comes in at a certain level and gets back to that same level, Sean. What we're really about is that someone saying, hey, I came in for this. I was running at this pace or I was playing at this level. And after my care at Next Level, I have never played better in my life. That's what I'm going after. That's what makes us a little different.
Okay. I think this is the perfect transition. I got to ask about Chrissy. You got to tell me, because this just ties in exactly to what you just said. What's good with Chrissy?
Chrissy, if you're out there, I love sharing the story because it was an inspiration to work with you and see you excel beyond your expectation and ours. But Chrissy was, and she is, a very fast runner. She was already running a 3:10 marathon, and she qualified for Boston. if anyone out there is a runner, you guys know that it's definitely a challenge to qualify for Boston.
And for those that may not know about marathon pace, 3:10, where would you rank that?
Oh my God, it's fast. Definitely for the average amateur athlete, if you're running under 3:15, like you're a pretty good runner. You're a very fast runner. So I would say she was definitely high level. And so she comes in about 3 months before Boston with a hamstring strain. And it was bad enough where it was difficult for her to get around and not have pain in the area. And obviously the stress is high because she had done all this training in preparation for Boston. So she comes in, we take a look, and she's, basically asking us, what, can I get back to that race? And we tell her, like we always tell our athletes, like we will do our darndest to get you back to that race, and hopefully better than you ever have. And with Chrissy, we did not disappoint. So we did our razzle dazzle, our different things that we do with our patients. And we got her to the point where she was able to get back into running. But before we did that, she had never done strength training before. So we incorporated a lot of heavy lifting into what she was doing once or twice a week because she was still recovering. And she was getting very strong, actually, for her height and weight. And, it was awesome to see because she was progressing nicely. She was all in, and we were all in too. So between her and one of our exercise physiologists, Dr. Harry Pino, shout out to Dr. Harry, who helped design the right program to get her back into running at a higher pace again, faster pace. She got to Boston, and like I said before, she was running at 3:10 and ended up running at 2:54, which is insane.
Incredible, man.
I mean, and the best part was, I think she had said the last 6 miles or so, she felt like she could have gone harder. And I was like, Chrissy, like that is exactly where you need to be. Congratulations. But it was so great to share that experience with her. And it was very hard for her emotionally. And for any runners out there or any athletes, I know what it's like to be sidelined from my own injuries, but especially when you put in all that work to get to that certain level and something holds you back like this, it's very, very frustrating, disappointing, discouraging. But for someone like Chrissy, where we were able to be there not only just as her physical therapy team, but also as her friend and as her coach to guide her through the mental part, like, hey, listen, you're making progress, like reminding her that, listen, you're on track. You're actually ahead of time. So these are all things that we take into consideration. We're looking at that whole person experience of getting that person back to what they love to do.
Amazing, man. Amazing. For those out there that are in the Jersey area, we'll do some promotional stuff at the end for how you can find Dr. Jerry. But this guy and his team, one of the best in the business. So
thank you.
This is the type of work that they deliver. And it's amazing, man. I got to just follow it up though, because I believe that some years later, then there's a triathlon story here with Chrissy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Okay.
The great thing is Chrissy has remained pain-free since actually this is before the pandemic, actually, when I think about it. And so I have an office in North Carolina, which is where I live, and I happened to be back in town, and I saw Chrissy saw me at a local place in Westwood, New Jersey. So we caught up and said our hellos, and I said, hey, listen, by the way, we're putting up a triathlon in Hillsdale, the Pasco Valley Tri, or the PV Tri for any locals out there. And I was like, you should just do it. And she's, oh, I just had a baby. I was like, come on, Chrissy, this is you. So I'm really good at persuading people. I'll just say that. And so I got her to get into the race. And not only does she come to the race, she friggin' wins the race.
What?
That is typical Chrissy fashion. Shout out to you, Chrissy, for being the person that you are.
It's epic. It's epic, man. I mean, the fact that she was pain-free years later, which I feel like for someone in your field is like, that's what it's all about, man. I mean, when you're working with people that are in pain, I mean, they're suffering, right? And it impacts every aspect. It's not just the movement piece. There's a psychological component to this, man. If anyone out there has ever had like bad back pain or neck pain, or, they're not able to just their daily active life, it becomes a pretty sad existence. And that this is just into some gratitude stuff here, but there are many people that do not have any mobility, that spend their days bedridden. And it's just constantly remembering those gifts, everyone, the ability that for many of us, we rose out of bed today.
I think that's a really important piece, not to take movement for granted.
Definitely.
And I've seen so many different kinds of cases all across the age groups. Kids having stroke, even due to different issues. having aneurysms too. I've had all the way through amputees. So it's easy to take what we have for granted. And this is definitely a lesson for me. Every time I work with a patient, it's, I'm just grateful that I can do what I can do every day and not be restricted. And the times that I am restricted, I say to myself, you know what, it kind of sucks, but I will get past this because I know how to take care of myself. But for those of you who are out there who can't do that, that's when you want to really start seeking some help. We also know that, and like you said, Sean, movement is one of the best ways to get your mind in the right space. So there was actually I think there was a study down in the University of South Carolina, I believe, talking about how movement is a great antidote for depression or a great adjunct to treatment. And so you figure, like humans, we were designed to move. Everything in our structure was designed to move. So if we're not doing that, you got to think about what those ramifications are for your body if you're not able to do those things or you're not doing those things.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. Got to stay moving out there, everybody.
Absolutely.
So this is, let's dive into this for a second. So there's a pretty wide spectrum when I think about care, right? In physical therapy.
Yes.
You have people that crush it and do it at the level that you do it. And then there are people maybe that have other modalities that are not as successful. So talk to me about, where do people get physical therapy wrong? Why is it this revolving door when they keep coming back in week after week, month after month, sadly, year after year?
I'm so glad you said that. I think a lot of it has to do with just the structure of the profession itself these days. So if you end up at a place where you are being seen with 4 or 5 other patients at the same time, there is just no way that your PT is going to be able to dive into you as a person, what it is that you value, what you want to get back to. They're going to be doing basically spot care. And it's not the fault of the PT. It's not the fault of the patient for seeing that PT. It's just the way that the system is run, whether you're in a hospital-based system in PT or if you're, again, in one of these big mills. I won't mention any names, but oftentimes we will get patients who've been to those places where, listen, I was left to do exercise on my own. And one of my favorite stories, I had a lady come in many years ago who came in. She had been to every specialist and PT for several weeks for what was a tennis elbow. And I mentioned this actually in another podcast, but what was funny about this is that, so I was given a referral over to see her. So she comes in, we go through her history, and I'm like, it sounds like she's got tennis elbow. Everything she's describing, what she told about the care that she received elsewhere, it was something I would probably do for tennis elbow starting out. But then she said it wasn't going away after several weeks. So I think what sometimes PTs miss out on when they don't have the time is doing that assessment more in depth. So for us, whenever we look at elbow pain or shoulder pain, we have to rule out the neck. First thing I did, Sean, was do a couple of neck tests, and she definitely had a cervical disc issue, namely at C5, C6, C7. We worked on her neck. Her elbow pain went away. And that's the stuff that happens all the time. But again, it's not the fault of the PT or the patient. It is the fault of the system. And it's hard because when reimbursements are low, I understand because we are a hybrid cash-based practice, that affords us more time to be able to see and spend time with our clients so that we can get to the root cause of what's going on and dive deeper into what they really need. Because everyone is so different. Not every neck, shoulder, back, knee pain will present the same way, even with the same diagnosis. And everyone's got different lifestyles, different thought patterns. Some are more positive than others. And all those things play into the outcome of what that client is going to go through. And if we don't get that big picture of that client before we start care, we're only going to be basically addressing symptoms. Oh, you got a knee issue? Okay, let me address your knee. When really it's a hip issue. So these are, I think, when we miss the bigger picture, we definitely miss the boat on what is really causing the pain of that client.
Got to look at the whole human.
Whole human.
Yeah.
Always.
Holistic approach.
And up there too. Yeah. Mentally as well.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. So you've painted very well where folks can miss the mark. Yeah. Now let's go into your world at Next Level. Mm-hmm. Why are you guys crushing it so hard?
I think it is really because we spend the time with our clients. Like, I want to know everything about their lifestyle, what they're eating, how they're sleeping, what their stress level is like, because all these things will play into how fast they recover. And these are all things that can delay healing, that can delay their recovery. If they have the wrong attitude coming in because they've tried everything else, now there's like, well, I don't know if this is even going to work. If they're coming in with that mindset, I need to shift that mindset for the client, build trust as quickly as possible, because time is ticking and dollars are being spent. So I have to do my best in that first 2 sessions to help that client understand that I'm working for your best interest. I want to see you succeed, because if you succeed, we both succeed. And I think that's what really sets us apart as far as that goes. People have always said, what I love about you guys is, not only is there a family feel to what you guys do, but you guys are experts and you guys really do take the time to listen to what's going on in my life that might be causing me to not get the outcomes that I'm looking for.
I love it. I love it. So let's fast forward 5 years down the road. Mm-hmm. Where do you see this company?
That's a great question. That's been on my mind a lot. So it's funny that you're asking. I see us getting really good at nailing down all of our systems and making sure that everything is optimized as possible internally on the infrastructure. And I think once that's done, a lot of opportunities will be manifesting themselves at that time. For me, I am entering the coaching space for physical therapy for young entrepreneurs who are looking to start their own practices. Because of my experiences, I've thankfully gained a lot of wisdom, and I've made a lot of mistakes that I can help a lot of young entrepreneurs out there avoid. So that for me is sort of like my next evolution, if you will, as an entrepreneur.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
If you were speaking directly to a physical therapist right now that is, let's say that he or she is in their 30s, mm-hmm. They've been working with a practice, they feel like they have some good experience and they have that, entrepreneurial bug, if you will. What would be a few things that you'd say to them to consider about wanting to take that next step?
A lot of questions I would ask for, like, what stage are you in life? Are you married? Are you dating? Because that can dictate a lot of things. Will your spouse be okay that you're not making money for that first 6 months to a year, maybe? Do you have another source of income? Do you have family to support you? The other question I would ask is, why are you doing this? If it's just for the sake of making that 6-figure income, I guess that could be a motivation. But if that's all it's all about, then you're going to be very disappointed when you make that money. There's got to be a greater purpose to why you're doing it. Who are you going to serve? What is it about you that's going to make your physical therapy different from XYZ PT down the street? These are all questions I would want that person to really think about and consider before they take that step. And I think if they carefully consider those questions and can answer them honestly, I think they'll arrive at the right conclusion of whether or not this is the right first step for them.
It's so important, everybody. Like, if you are this is even outside of I think this is relevant for PTs, but even entrepreneurs in general, taking that time to do introspection, understanding these things before you make that jump is so overlooked. People are like, okay, I want to start a business, and they get going. Why? How do you want to spend your time? Like, what are your greater values that you have? Like, really doing that work before you take that jump is so important, because what happens is, and Jerry, you know this very well, is that you're going to hit roadblocks, many of them.
Many.
And then you're going to have to fall back on these higher North Stars and values and things that are going to carry you forward. So when you have that time before you jump in and go for it, really take the time to do introspection. Maybe we can also talk about too, how do you find a mentor, man? Like, is there anybody that helped you? Like, how did you get here today?
I'm glad you mentioned that. Something else I would say too, you got to find a mentor and a coach that works for you. So if you are, for example, in our space, if you're looking to do an in-network model with insurance, you want to find somebody who does that specific model. If you're looking to do a cash-based hybrid model, you want to look for somebody with experience in that model. If you're looking to do a virtual platform, somebody who's had some familiarity with the virtual platform. Because if you don't, then that person's really not going to be able to kind of give you the kind of direction that you need to accelerate your steps to being successful. The other part of it is making sure that your core values align with that coach, because I know that I've been through a lot of coaches in different areas, and some people I really jive with, others I didn't. And the ones I didn't, I sort of felt like this wasn't going to work because our personality and our dynamics wasn't going to be there wasn't going to be anything synergistic about it. And I don't think we both would have gotten anything out of it. So finding the right coach who matches your values too, very, very important. As far as finding people in the space, there's so many resources out there right now. There are several in our space. One of them is my coach, actually, currently, Paul Goff, who has been, for me, a really important bedrock for my success. And kudos to you, Paul. I give him kudos every time I meet him, but a lot of important decisions I had to make in my PT career in the last 10 years were because I had a really good coach in my corner.
That's such great advice. And I think one thing that's overlooked is the value of bringing in a coach to your life.
Absolutely.
And if you look at even, for example, the coach that I work with, shout out Kevin Bjorklund. He was mentored and trained directly by Bob Proctor. I don't know if
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow,
So
that's cool.
So I found him on YouTube and we started like vibing. I did a session with him talking about some breathwork stuff, and he was teaching me about his program, and I was going through a really hard time. And I mean, he's spent, and I'm sure he doesn't even care if I share this, but hundreds of thousands of dollars on coaches, and really invested into his growth. And you see the people that are at the top of their field, they may have 5 coaches that they work with for specific things.
Absolutely.
And what that is doing is it's really expediting your growth, especially if there's that alignment on values and vision, and they can really help you. I mean, the investments that I made in coaches has been some of the best money I've ever spent because of how it's transformed old paradigms that were holding me back, reframe things, my daily practices, my mindset, having just somebody in your corner that's done it before that can give you that sound feedback. And it's critical, man. It's critical. So it sounds like you've had a few, and is it Paul? That's
Paul's my current coach.
Yeah.
I've had some other coaches as well, and different coaches for different reasons. Aaron Labara is in our field, and he was a great tactical coach. So shout out to Aaron too. He's very successful in our space too. I think for me, it's funny. Paul mentions this a lot. If I come in with an issue, the first thing I'll ask is, "Are we talking to 2023 Jerry or 2015 Jerry?" I'm like, "Okay, you're right." And like you said, and I love how you said this, Sean, that paradigm shift. Sometimes that's all you need as an entrepreneur to get you on the right track. A lot of times, when we do our group calls and we do our mastermind meetings, it's usually 1 or 2 nuggets I take from that really kind of drive that quarter or drive that year for how I'm going to making big plans for that. Or maybe it's just a small shift. And hey, listen, you're doing it this way. You just have to do it this way. It's like, oh my God. Stuff that you already know that you need to be reminded, I think, is the biggest value of a coach. But I would say if you're starting off in the space, it is worth the investment of getting a coach. You will really move past obstacles much quicker and accelerate your growth if you do that.
I totally agree. I want to shift gears here. And do you have telepathic abilities, or what's it?
Not that I know of.
Okay. Well, we're about to find out.
Yeah.
So imagine that you have keen telepathic sense and ability, and you are able to connect with all 8 billion souls on the earth right now.
8 billion.
8 billion. I know there's a lot of us now,
That's
Jerry.
We're
multiplying like bunnies.
Yeah.
So imagine you have the skill, and there's one message that you want to get out. You're going to connect directly into the minds, hearts, and souls of all of us. What do you say?
So I would say just move. And I mean that physically and mentally, emotionally. Again, like I said before, as humans, we were made to move. And I know from my own experiences that when we don't move, when we stay stagnant, that is when things become a downward spiral for us. But taking steps forward, wherever you may be in life, 1 step forward, 2 steps forward at a time, that's what's going to allow you to get out of the hole that you're in, out of the rut. What is it that you can become now? What is it you can do right now? That movement, I think, is a real critical piece in being able to progress forward and getting to your next level.
Just move. It's so critical, especially for us that are sedentary creatures that are now in front of, what do you call them? Desk jockeys?
Yeah, desk jockeys.
Desk jockeys. That's hilarious. Yeah, just move, everyone. And maybe call out, Jerry, like, what does it mean when we are moving? Like, I don't think people fully understand, like, you're getting nutrients to the joints. Like, that's such a key piece of this. So what is actually happening when we are moving? Like what is taking place physiologically?
So if I were to explain it in a broad sense, we are changing pressure inside of our canisters, if you look at the space in our thorax, to be able to shift our weight distribution and be able to propel forward. While we're doing that, fluids are also moving, our organs are moving, our muscles are contracting, our joints are getting that pump that they need to get nutrition in. Our brain is being oriented to what's in space. All of our senses are being activated. All these things are happening at once. Our heart's pounding, depending on the intensity of our movement. all this is happening whether or not you realize it's happening. And that's why I think, being present and aware of that can be so powerful when you think of a movement in general. It's not just the physical movement, it's everything being activated at the same time.
It's a beautiful system, man.
It really
is. It's a miracle that
Profound.
all this works together as well as it does. So remember to be grateful, everybody, for the miracle, which is your body and all of these cells, these systems, ligaments, joints, tissues, all working together to help you crush it. Amazing. So Jerry, I want to give you the floor a little bit as we close here. How can people find you? Is there anything in terms of new clients, things that they can do that are interested? Maybe folks have heard this, that they can come into contact with you and be a part of your rad services?
Thank you. Absolutely. Yeah. If you want to find out more about us, you can go to our website, which is NL Physio, Next Level Physio. So nlphysio.com. You can also find us on Instagram, on our podcast, Beyond Physio. And we have a lot of good stuff there. If you want to reach us directly, info@nlphysio.com. If you have tried physical therapy, or maybe you don't know what a good physical therapy practice could be like, you're more than welcome to come to one of our free total body assessments, where we're just going to go through your history, answer some questions, do a quick top-down assessment, and talk about next steps about what it's like to work with us. But we have helped a lot of people get past their plateaus or get past their even chronic pain and start moving again. And so we're happy to kind of give you some direction at no cost to you.
That sounds like a pretty good offer.
I think so.
Thank you, Jerry, so much for coming on, man.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Your mind, your energy, your entrepreneurial spirit, it's inspiring. And for those that may not see this video, homie is 48 years old and he's jacked. So clearly he knows what he's talking about.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for joining us today. I am your host, again, Sean Pritchard with the INHABIT Podcast, signing off. Until next time.